If a wild animal comes across a pool of naturally fermented fruit juice and drinks it, the result is usually fatal. To almost every creature on Earth, ethanol is a deadly poison. But humans, and our closest primate relatives, are a bizarre exception. We survive because we possess a genetic mutation, an enzyme called alcohol dehydrogenase 4, or ADH4, which efficiently breaks down ethanol. That mutation didn't appear when humans first walked upright or invented farming. It emerged deep in our family tree, roughly 10 million years ago. Long before our species existed, let alone built cities or baked wheat, our biology was already preparing for a deep chemical relationship with alcohol. A biologist named Robert Dudley spent 25 years studying this, resulting in an idea called the drunken monkey hypothesis. For millions of years, our ancient primate ancestors relied on enormous quantities of fruit as their primary source of daily calories. When fruit gets perfectly ripe in the wild, environmental yeast naturally lands on the surface. The yeast consumes the sugars inside and produces trace amounts of ethanol, creating a distinct scent. That faint smell of alcohol functioned as a sensory beacon. It told an ancient primate that this particular piece of fruit was at maximum ripeness, maximum sweetness, and maximum caloric value. The primates who followed that scent secured more food, survived longer, and passed that preference down the line. Researchers studying wild black-handed spider monkeys in Panama found the animals actively seek out fruit containing up to 2. At some point, a cognitively modern human makes the enormous leap from accidentally finding fermented fruit to deliberately manufacturing a fermented liquid. The oldest confirmed evidence of this sits inside Raqefet Cave in modern-day Israel. Here, 13,000 years ago, a group of semi-nomadic hunter-gatherers known as the Natufians used massive stone mortars for a highly sophisticated multi-step brewing process. They were malting, mashing, and fermenting wild wheat and barley to produce beer. The Natufians were not farmers. They did not grow crops. This intentional, complex production of beer predates the invention of organized agriculture. This sequence of events fuels what archaeologists call the beer before bread hypothesis. It suggests nomadic humans endured the months of intense labor required to break ground and plant seeds for one specific reason. They wanted a guaranteed, reliable surplus of a mildly intoxicating beverage. The biological craving cultivated in the forest canopy millions of years earlier provided a direct motivation for humans to stop wandering, settle in one place, and trigger the agricultural revolution. Early agricultural societies across the globe began discovering fermentation entirely independently, without ever trading information or recipes. Archaeologists have uncovered 9,000-year-old pottery in China containing an ancient cocktail of fermented rice, honey, and hawthorn fruit. 1,000 years later, villagers in what is now Georgia were producing wine, storing it in massive clay vessels buried in the earth. When a species is given crops, time, and an innate biological drive, the result is practically guaranteed. Human beings are incurably fermentation curious and will invent alcohol on their own. As those agricultural settlements grew into massive populations, the early empires of Mesopotamia took this biological urge and organized it into a vast, heavily regulated socio-economic system. In Sumeria, laborers building temples and scribes copying tablets drank beer as a contractual part of their employment. They received daily rations of it as a rigid part of their compensation. The industry became so massive that one of humanity's earliest written legal documents, the Code of Hammurabi, explicitly legislated it. The code included stringent consumer protection laws, dictating exactly what happened to tavern owners caught watering down their products. In the dawn of cities, alcohol was the essential currency and the regulatory foundation holding the empire together. In ancient Egypt, beer served as safe public health infrastructure for the general population. Wine, however, was heavily guarded prestige. As depicted in their tombs, wine cultivation was strictly designated for high ceremony, elite status, and divine offerings placed directly before the gods. From the hunter-gatherers brewing beer for burial rituals in Israeli caves, to the Egyptian pharaohs stocking wine for the afterlife, early alcohol production is universally tied to the sacred and honoring the dead. Every glass poured today is the culmination of a 10-million-year continuous chain. What began as a chemical beacon for raw biological survival in the primate nervous system ultimately became the architect of civilized human life. You wake up, it's pitch black. You don't have walls, you don't have a door, you don't even have shoes. And somewhere out there in the tall grass, something with 6-inch claws is deciding if you look like dinner. Go back 2.5 million years, and our early Homo ancestors had no fire, no complex tools, and no coordinated hunting strategies. Biologically, they were a prey animal, sitting firmly on the menu for anything larger and faster. The predators they dealt with were significantly more dangerous than the lions we see today. There was a prehistoric hyena the size of a modern bear, equipped with jaws strong enough to bite through a full-grown elephant femur like a breadstick. Then there were the saber-toothed cats. These were highly evolved killers, equipped with curved canine teeth that grew up to 11 inches long. For the first 100,000 years, early humans were biologically outmatched. Every time they gathered near a watering hole to drink, they were walking straight into a trap, surviving day to day mostly by sheer luck. This visualizes the landscape of fear. Prey maintain an internal map of their environment, charting where predators hunt to avoid high-risk zones. This mental map forced early humans into nighttime trade-offs. To avoid ground hunters while sleeping, they sought elevation in trees. Trees weren't a perfect defense. Leopards are excellent climbers, and the archaeological record shows they actively hunted hominids straight up into the canopy. Humans also sought shelter in caves, but those spaces were often already occupied. Early humans were frequently forced to timeshare these defensible positions with extremely dangerous predators like the 1,000-kilogram cave bear. To offset these risks, humans relied on the dilution effect. Simply existing in a group of 25 rather than alone mathematically drops the statistical chance that any one specific individual will be grabbed in the dark. Hiding in trees, time-sharing caves, and clustering together in groups kept the species from extinction. But unfortunately, these were strictly defensive maneuvers that left early humans locked entirely at the bottom of the food chain. The mastery of fire rewrote the relationship between humans and the natural world. It exploited a deeply hardwired fear shared by almost all land predators, an ancient evolutionary response to a force they had no way to predict or fight. A burning fire destroyed a predator's ability to use darkness for stealth. It created a physical and psychological boundary that predators were unwilling to cross, turning the night into something manageable. With complex language, knowledge outlived individuals. One person could describe a predator's location, warning others. This built a generational database of survival tactics. Collective understanding of the landscape grew far beyond what any single person could observe. Fire secured the immediate radius of the camp, while language ensured that a predator encounter from last year could save a life today. These two tools combined to shift the human experience from one of constant reaction to one of strategic planning. Roughly 400,000 years ago, humans began engineering aerodynamically weighted wooden spears. This marked the moment our ancestors transitioned from defense to offense. Projectile weapons changed the transaction of combat. For the first time, humans could inflict lethal damage from 30 or 40 meters away, striking from a distance where a predator's claws and teeth were useless. Our bodies also developed a specialized biological advantage. Humans sweat across almost our entire body surface area, meaning we can run and cool ourselves down at the exact same time. Most large mammals rely on panting to cool down, which requires them to slow down or stop. Humans could use persistence hunting to pace behind stronger animals in the midday heat until those predators collapsed from heat stroke and exhaustion. Because predators are capable of learning through experience, taking physical damage from human weapons changed their behavior. They began to associate human groups with lethal threat rather than easy prey. By combining distance weapons with relentless physical endurance, humans forced a behavioral shift in carnivores. Over generations, the landscape of fear reversed direction, pointing away from us. By about 50,000 years ago, humans reached the threshold of behavioral modernity. We were now executing long-range planning and coordinating massive hunts across wide territories. These cave paintings represent permanent communication, recording specific details about animal migrations and dangerous hunting locations. By documenting these patterns on rock, knowledge was passed between groups and across generations. As this highly coordinated network of human hunters expanded across the globe, the existing ecosystems buckled. We see a systemic collapse of the planet's megafauna across nearly every continent. The extinctions map precisely to human arrival. The woolly mammoth was one of the first to disappear. Massive herbivores like the Irish elk, with its 4-meter antler span, followed, and the giant ground sloth, animals that had successfully survived ice ages and massive tectonic shifts, were unable to survive us. We didn't reach this position through biological superiority. Humans never evolved sharper claws or faster sprint speeds than the creatures we eliminated. Instead, the combination of shared intelligence and specialized tools allowed humans to dominate territories on every continent. We became the first species to learn faster than evolution could adapt, turning the predators into the prey.